and we will answer questions at the end. Uh, Also, we're recording this webinar and we'll post the recording on the Jane Addams Branch website. So thank you all. And thank you, Bonnie Wheaton, for presenting. Please start.
Good evening to my fellow AAUW members. I've been an AAUW member of the Wheaton Glen Ellen branch for 38 years, and I wholeheartedly support the mission and the vision of AAUW. I'm going to, you can see my my short bio here, and I'll answer a question that I always get. My late husband, Ralph Wheaton, was a great-great-grandson of Jesse Wheaton, who, along with his brother Warren Wheaton, were the founders of the city of Wheaton. So I can't claim any credit for it, but I just married into the right family. Okay, with that being said, if I can find the share. Okay, if there's anybody who can't see that, please let me know and we can figure out something else. The title of my talk is Women Judges, A Necessarily Brief History. And it's necessarily brief because women judges have only existed in the United States for about 100 years. Women have made great strides in the judiciary, but we have lots more work to do. This is not working the same. There it is. Okay. This picture embodies that women must work together. There'll be a couple of recurring themes in my talk tonight. One is that no one gives up power voluntarily. We have to be strategic and calculating and seize power by being smarter than the opposition. And we have to band together to achieve that goal. There'll be plenty of time for bickering when we have a large enough group in the judiciary. The history of women judges in the US is only about 100 years old. I'll introduce you to a lot of women you probably never heard of, women who struggled against the weight of history to make it possible for me and my fellow sister judges to be where we are today. We've reached a point where the United Nations has recognized through the Office on Drugs and Crime that there ought to be an International Day of Women Judges. The theme is Women in Justice, Women for Justice, and that date is March 10th. It's easy for me to remember because that's my daughter's birthday. I'm going to talk about four main topics tonight. The first is, do women decide cases differently than men? Then I'm going to talk a little bit about international women judges, and then women in federal courts, and women lawyers and judges in Illinois, and specifically in DuPage County, because that's where I live and work in the 18th Judicial Circuit. And I know the most about this. I've met a lot of wonderful women from downstate counties, but I'm not that familiar with the politics downstate. All I know is that we've made great strides in the northern part of the state. Okay. Do women decide cases differently than men? That's a question that a lot of people want to know. And the answer is yes and no. On issues of law, studies have shown that there is no difference whatsoever between how women decide cases and how men decide cases. The yes part of it is that on questions that involve lived experiences, women do decide cases differently than men because we have different lived experiences. And the biggest example that I can point to is a case that was decided by the Supreme Court. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the court at that time. This is a case of Safford United School District versus Samantha Redding. Samantha Redding, whose picture is right here, was a 13-year-old girl in a Texas school system. Someone had anonymously reported that she had brought drugs to school, not hard drugs, but prescription drugs. And she was brought into the principal's office. She denied it, and she was forced to strip down in front of female teachers, not male teachers, but female teachers, stripped down to her bra and panties, and nothing was ever found. When this case reached the Supreme Court, during the argument, some of the male justices made light of the humiliation Samantha felt because of the strip search, even though they had amicus briefs and other information about how devastating strip searches can be to adolescents. In an interview, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, "They have never been a 13-year-old girl. It's a very sensitive age for a girl. I don't think that my colleagues, some of them, quite understood." And that shows the importance of having diversity in the judiciary. Women, Blacks, Hispanics, gays, and other groups have different lived experiences. And we can't help but bring our own experiences into our judgments when a situation like this occurs. And I think that's a very good thing. We starting on the 1st of February, we will have our first Indian American judge on the bench. That's South Asian Indian. And I think he will probably bring a lot of his life experience to bear on the decisions that are made by the Supreme Court. Next, I'm going to talk about the International Association of Women Judges. This group was only formed in 1991, and it became a real force in the years that have followed since 1991. As you can see from these figures, there are many thousands of members from all over the globe. And there are also programs that are put on by the International Association of Women Judges. I was fortunate to go to one conference, and it was in 1989 before this group was founded, but I was impressed by the number of women who were present at that conference from other countries. I'm going to see if I can play just a little bit. We'll see if this works.
A part of IAWJ is an opportunity of a lifetime to see the world with different eyes, different cultures, and different judicial systems.
The members of the IAWJ become your friends. They're there for you to reach out. You realize you're not the only one.
It gave them aspirations because we were always, we always told ourselves there's no reason why we cannot run judiciaries around the world with the information we had.
Being a woman judge, I have a voice that can be heard. I can be able to play a role insofar as being able to advance the cause for the voiceless in the justice system.
I've been working for this organization for almost 30 years. I've met some of the most amazing human beings on the planet.
The IAWJ has grown, as you may be aware, to over 6,000 members now. So to say it's a success is an understatement. We serve judges all around the world now and are able to be the voice for a lot of women judges that aren't able to speak up.
Since it's
Okay. I'm going to try to continue. And this worked before. We'll see if it works now. There. Okay. Now I'm going to start to talk about judges on the federal bench. Genevieve Rose Klein, as you can see from this, was the first woman who was named to any federal bench in 1927. The federal bench is composed not only of the district courts, the appellate courts, and the Supreme Court. There are other administrative law courts and other organizations that are considered to be part of the judiciary. So Genevieve Klein was the first one to be appointed. She started out, and she was in Ohio. She was president of the Ohio Federation of Women's Clubs. She received a law degree when she was 44 years old. She was in practice and was an appraiser of merchandise for the Department of Treasury from 1921 to 1928. That branch of the government no longer exists. It's been folded into another one. She was appointed to the U.S. Customs Court in 1928. She never married, and she felt that women had to choose between family and career. She served for 25 years until her retirement. Florence Allen was the first woman federal judge, and she was appointed in 1934. She has a very interesting background. She attended the University of Chicago Law School and got her degree from NYU with honors in 1913. She studied piano, and she was a music critic for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, pardon me. She had no clients when she started her practice, so she volunteered for legal aid. In 1919, she became an assistant prosecutor. She argued a woman's suffrage case before the Ohio Supreme Court and then ran for the Court of Common Pleas in 1920. The League of Women Voters campaigned very hard for her, and she traveled and lectured in all 88 Ohio counties. She was elected to the Ohio Supreme Court in 1922, and in 1934, Franklin D. Roosevelt appointed her to the 6th District Court of Appeals. This is a theme that you're going to hear several times this evening about women helping other women get elected. As I said, the League of Women Voters campaigned for her. I believe the League of Women Voters today doesn't take a partisan stand on candidates, but evidently they did back then, pardon me. The first Black woman judge was appointed in 1939. Her name was Jane Boland. And she also has a very interesting history. She was born in 1908. Her father was a renowned Black lawyer. Her mother, who was white, died when Jane was only 8. Excuse me. She graduated from Wellesley at age 16 and from Yale Law School at age 20. She experienced a great deal of discrimination, both as a Black and as a woman. She became the assistant corporation counsel in New York City, and in 1939 was appointed by Fiorello LaGuardia as judge of the family court. She was a judge for 40 years, and after she retired, she worked for civil rights, children's rights, and education. She died in 2007 when she was 98 years old. The first woman who was a federal trial judge was Vernita Shelton Matthews. She was appointed in 1949. She was born in 1894 in Mississippi. Her father wanted her to teach music. She married a lawyer right before he went off to World War I, and although he survived, she never lived with him. Her father offered to pay for law school, so she went to the District of Columbia and worked for the Veterans Administration days and went to George Washington University at night, graduating in 1920. On weekends, she picketed the White House for women's rights and for votes for women. She couldn't get hired, so she built her own practice, a 3-woman law firm. She was involved in the National Women's Party and represented her organization when the government wanted to condemn the National Women's Party headquarters to build the Supreme Court building. She was involved in many other women's organizations. She was appointed to the federal trial court in 1949 by Harry Truman and was confirmed by the Senate. When she became a trial judge, she only hired women law clerks because she felt that so many women could not get prestigious or good paying jobs. She believed women had to choose between law and motherhood, and she died in 1988 at the age of 93. So a lot of these pioneer women judges lived long and happy lives well into their 80s and 90s. The second woman who was appointed as a federal trial judge was Sarah Tillman Hughes. She's best known as the judge who administered the oath of office to Lyndon Johnson on the plane taking John F. Kennedy's body back to Washington after his assassination. She presided over Roe versus Wade at the trial court level. She started as a police officer in 1919, working with prostitutes and runaway girls. She lived in a tent near the Potomac River while attending George Washington University Law School. She was a Texas trial judge from 1935 to 1961, a very long and illustrious career. She was appointed a federal trial judge by John F. Kennedy and died in 1985. Of course, you probably recognize Sandra Day O'Connor. She was the first woman on the US Supreme Court, and that happened in 1981. She was born in 1930 and grew up on a ranch in Arizona, but lived with her grandmother in El Paso for school. On graduation from high school at age 18, she went to Stanford University and graduated there at age 20 and at Stanford Law School at age 22. She couldn't find a job, so she worked for nothing as a deputy county attorney in San Mateo. She went with her husband to Germany when he was in the Army, and she worked as a civilian attorney for the Army Quartermaster Corps. They settled in Phoenix, and she became active in Republican politics. She was a state senator, then the Senate Majority Leader. She was appointed a Maricopa County judge in 1974 and was elected to the Arizona Court of Appeals in 1979. In 1981, President Reagan appointed her to the US Supreme Court. She retired in 2006 to tend to her husband, who had Alzheimer's. I often wonder what the history of the United States would be like if she hadn't retired to take care of her husband. Not only was it a tragedy that he had Alzheimer's, but it was a tragedy that he did not recognize her shortly after she retired. And he indeed had formed a relationship with another woman who was living in the same facility. So he didn't even consider Sandra Day O'Connor to be his wife at the end. I think it's a real shame that she did not stay on the court, but I guess we can all understand why she did what she did. Anyway, she died in 2003. She was a moderate conservative and was considered the swing vote for many cases. I had the good fortune to meet her twice, once when I went to a conference in Arizona, and once when she spoke at Elmhurst College, and I got to sit next to her at dinner. She was a charming person and worked very hard for legal issues after her retirement as well. And of course, we all recognize my personal hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was the second woman on the US Supreme Court and was appointed in 1993. She was born in 1933, and her mother died just before her high school graduation. She went to Cornell University and married Martin Ginsburg and had 2 children. one of only 9 women in her class of 500 at Harvard Law School. She and her female classmates were berated by the dean for, quote, taking the place of a man, unquote. Martin Ginsburg was ahead of her in school, and he took a job as a tax attorney in New York City. So she went to Columbia for her final year of law school because she followed him when he took that job. She was on law review and graduated with honors. In the 50s, law firms were beginning to take women, but as she said, quote, being a Jew, a woman, and a mother to boot was a bit too much, unquote. From 1959 to 1961, she worked as a law clerk to a federal judge. Then she was a research assistant at Columbia, a professor at Rutgers, and then a professor at Columbia. She learned Swedish and co-authored a book on Swedish law. She was influenced by women's equality in Sweden. And she became general counsel at the ACLU and was appointed to the District of Columbia Court of Appeals in 1980 by Jimmy Carter. She was appointed to the US Supreme Court by Bill Clinton in 1993, and of course died, unfortunately, in 2020. Everyone speculated when she became so ill that she would retire and let Barack Obama appoint her successor. But she really wanted to be succeeded by Hillary Clinton. And she thought that would happen if she were to survive. Unfortunately, she didn't, and that has changed our history. Her husband, Marty, led a lobbying effort to have her appointed to the Court of Appeals because he had a lot of contacts both in New York and in Washington. She is probably the only Supreme Court justice who has ever been consistently portrayed on Saturday Night Live. You may recall that Kate McKinnon played her and came up with the famous line that was repeated over and over, "You've been Ginsburned." And people who knew RBG said that she really did like being portrayed on Saturday Night Live. She thought it was funny. So now where are we? We have 4 women on the Supreme Court, and this is a very, very diverse group. I'll go from right to left. Elena Kagan, of course, was a well-respected litigator and jurist, and she is a white Jewish woman. Ketanji Brown Jackson, of course, is a very well-respected jurist, and she is a Black woman. Sonia Sotomayor, of course, comes from a Hispanic background, and Amy Coney Barrett is, although she is younger, she is a devout Catholic and has a big family. So this is a very diverse group of women, and there's a little something for everybody in that group. You can see the difference in the number of women and the percentage of women who are appointed during the tenure of the most recent judges through Joe Biden. You can't help but notice that the largest number and the largest percentage have been appointed by Democratic women, or rather Democratic presidents. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the women lawyers and judges in Illinois. Some of these names may be familiar to you, but I dare say most of them are not. One that you may have heard of is Myra Bradwell. She was the first woman to pass the Illinois bar exam, and that happened in 1869. She was born in 1831, and she started, quote, reading law, unquote, in her husband's law office. At that time, there were 2 ways that you could become a lawyer. One was to attend a law school, and the other was to work in a lawyer's office and become familiar with the law that way. In 1868, she started the Chicago Legal News. She had the requirement to be a lawyer, which was to be examined by two lawyers and have a certificate of good character. She was denied because she couldn't enter contracts as a married woman. She appealed to the Illinois Supreme Court, which said it was a matter for the legislature. The US Supreme Court gave one of the worst rulings I think I have ever read, quote, "The natural and proper timidity and delicacy which belongs to the female sex evidently unfits it for many of the occupations of civil life. The paramount destiny and mission of woman are to fulfill the noble and benign offices of wife and mother. This is the law of the Creator," unquote. She never did try to obtain her law license after the first attempt, and she was active in women's suffrage. As a side note, I have to tell you that the Women's Bar Association of Illinois gives the Myra Bradwell Award every year, and I was informed that I am going to be one of the recipients of the Myra Bradwell come March. So I consider that a very high honor, and I will be delighted to accept it. The first woman law school graduate in the United States was Ada Kepley. She was born in 1847 and attended Union College of Law, which is now the Northwestern University Law School. She graduated in 1870. A judge in Effingham County allowed her to practice despite the Supreme Court ruling against Myra Bradwell. She was formally admitted to the bar in 1881, but never practiced law. She was known for her work in temperance and women's suffrage. Her temperance work led to a saloon keeper's son breaking into her house and shooting at her, but he missed her and shot her dog in the foot. Her husband drafted a bill banning sex discrimination in professional occupations, which became law in 1872. After her husband died, she lost her farm, and died in poverty in 1925. Very sad story. Another sad story is Alta Hewlett, who was the first woman actually licensed as an attorney in Illinois, and that was in 1873. Ada Kepley's husband's bill allowed Alta Hewlett to become the first woman licensed attorney in Illinois in 1873. She was born in 1854 and became a teacher when she graduated high school at 16. She also read the law and clerked for an attorney and passed the bar exam in 1871. She worked with Ada Kepley on legislation prohibiting sex discrimination, which was the first in the nation. The only exceptions were military service and road construction. And I'm not sure why road construction was added to that bill. Even though she passed the bar exam in 1871, she had to take it again and was licensed in 1873. She practiced for 3 years, but developed tuberculosis and went to California for her health. Unfortunately, she died just before her 23rd birthday. A more local notable woman was Ellen Martin, who was the first woman to vote in Illinois, 1891, right here in Lombard. She was born in 1847 and graduated from the University of Michigan and was admitted to the bar in 1876. Her practice was limited to office and drafting pleadings, and because she could not argue in court. The Lombard City Charter said, quote, "all citizens above the age of 21, unquote, were entitled to vote." Election judges got a ruling from the county judge, and the county judge's picture is hanging in our conference room. And after he ruled that she was a citizen above the age of 21, she was entitled to vote, Ellen Martin and 14 other women marched into the polls and voted right here in Lombard. Catherine Wall McCullough was the first woman elected as a justice of the peace in Illinois, and that was in 1907. We had justices of the peace until the Constitutional Convention in the early 70s. But before that, Catherine McCollum was elected as a justice of the peace. She was born in 1862 and attended Northwestern Law School. She lived in Evanston and had a law firm with her husband. She didn't want to marry because she was devoted to the suffrage movement, but he joined her in the suffrage movement and convinced her to marry him. She worked to give women equal guardianship over children and raise the age of consent for girls. She was elected Justice of the Peace, as I said, in 1907. Now, the very first woman to become a judge in the United States in a state court was Mary Bartlemay, and that was in 1920. This is such an interesting story. I hope you will agree. She was born in 1866 and, inspired by Myra Bradwell, graduated from Northwestern University in 1895. She practiced business and contract law. In 1897, she was made Cook County Public Guardian. In 1814, she was recommended by Jane Addams to be an assistant judge. She was known as, quote, Suitcase Mary, unquote, because she addressed women's clubs all over the Chicago area to solicit suitcases for toiletries, underwear, and a new dress for over 400 dependent girls. She started 3 settlement houses for girls, which were called Mary B. clubs. She was appointed to fill a circuit court vacancy in 1920 and was elected in 1923 with the help of all the women's clubs she had addressed. This is another instance of women banding together to make an election possible. And I love this picture because it shows all the women congratulating her on her success. She retired in 1933 and died in California in 1954 at the age of 88. And there's a park in Chicago which is named after her, Bartlemay Park. It took another 30 years for the second woman judge in Illinois to be elected. This is Bertha Fane Tucker, who was known as Fane. Fane Tucker attended DePauw University and the University of Chicago Law School. She practiced until she was elected circuit judge in 1953. Again, she was elected with the support of the Women's Bar Association of Illinois and numerous women's civic clubs and organizations. She served for 17 years until she died unexpectedly in 1970, shortly before her planned retirement. At her death, there were 2 women circuit judges and 5 women magistrates. She was the first woman to hear criminal cases in Illinois. And an example of women working together, strategizing, and being smart is the difference between 2 elections. This is from the Chicago Tribune after the general election on November 8th, 1990. A couple of days after the election, it's always in the Tribune with the election results. And as you can see, these are the circuit court elections, and I've underlined the women who actually won in the circuit court in Cook County. And as you can see, there were only 3 women. Now, contrast that with what happened 2 years later. And look at all the yellow, which denotes the women who were elected. And I love this story. It was told to me by one of the circuit judges from Cook County, Sheila Murphy, who was a redheaded firebrand of an Irish woman. She told me that this was the first year in 1962 that there were sub-circuits in Cook County. Previously, judges had to run county-wide. So it was both Chicago and the area outside of Chicago in Cook County. But in 1992, the legislature had divided Cook County into various sub-circuits. the women who wanted to run for judge all got together and decided that they would file petitions for multiple openings. And at that point, and still today, you can file petitions in numerous races if you qualify in each one. So the women did exactly that. And then after the petitions had been filed, before the deadline, they got together and decided which women should run in which races. And what they tried to do is run in the primary, and this is all in the Democratic primary in Cook County, because that's the only one that counted at that point. And they would arrange their withdrawals so there would be one woman in the primary, but there would be two or more men. And the thought was that the men would split the vote among themselves and the women would prevail. And that's exactly what happened. This is the general election, but in Cook County, winning the winning the primary as a Democrat was tantamount to being elected. So I thought this was absolutely brilliant, and I'm very grateful to Sheila Murphy for telling me about that. It's not very widely known. But I do have to point out that down in the lower right-hand corner, there's also another judge in DuPage County who was elected, and that was me. So I was actually appointed as an associate in 1988, but I won my election in 1982. So once again, women banded together to be smarter and more successful. And this is a very successful woman. This is the first woman on the Illinois Supreme Court, Mary Ann McMorrow, and she was elected in 1992. And she's on the page that I just showed you. It's the same thing. There were 6 men and 1 woman running in the primary, and she just trumped her Republican opponent once she won the primary election. McMorrow was born in 1930, and she went to the all-girls Immaculata High School and Rosary College. She was the only woman in her Loyola law school class. She had told me that Loyola had set up a 2-year program for returning Korean veterans. It was designed for the veteran men who were coming back after the Korean conflict. But she pointed out to them that there was nothing that restricted a woman from going into this 2-year program. She was in general practice until she joined the state's attorney's office in Cook County in 1955. She worked with one of my dear friends and mentors, who was a law school professor of mine named Frank Riley. McMorrow was elected as a circuit judge in 1976 and an appellate justice in 1985. As I said, in 1992, she defeated 7 men in the primary and the Republican candidate in the general. She was Chief Justice in 2002, the first woman to lead a branch of government in Illinois. She retired in 2006 and died in 2013. She was married to a Chicago police officer and had 1 daughter. And she and I shared an unfortunate circumstance. Both her husband and my husband died of colon cancer. But today, at least for the next couple of weeks until the end of the month, the Illinois Supreme Court has a majority of women. I'm very happy to say that all of these people are friends of mine, especially Mary Kay O'Brien, who's on the far right. She is the justice for the third appellate and Supreme Court district, which is where I am anyway. Mary Jane Tice in the center. She is now the chief judge until the end of the month, and I've known her for well over 30 years. We were both on the Illinois Judicial Ethics Committee back in the day, in the 90s. This picture makes it look like the Supreme Court room in Springfield is huge, but I'm telling you, it's really very, very small. But come the end of the month, Justice Tice, as I said earlier, is retiring, and she will be replaced by an appellate judge, Sanjay Taylor, who will be the first Indian American on the Supreme Court. He's now an appellate court justice. I'm going to move on to DuPage County because that's what I know best. And the first woman in DuPage County was Helen Kinney, and she was elected in, or she became a judge in 1973. She graduated summa cum laude from DePaul University Law School in 1959. When she graduated, she could not find a job for a long time. She finally started working for a local attorney, and it was only years later that she found out that her husband, Lester, who was also an attorney, had been paying this other firm to hire her. But after a few years, Bill Bauer, who was the state's attorney and went on to be on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, hired her as an associate. And Justice Bauer just died several weeks ago now. But Judge Kinney went on to be a clerk in the appellate court, and then she was a delegate to the Illinois Constitutional Convention. And she was appointed as an associate judge in 1972 and took office in 73, and then was elected as a circuit judge in 1976. She retired in 1988 and died in 1997, and she was instrumental in founding the DuPage Association of Women Lawyers. Now the Association of Women Lawyers has a scholarship named after her, which provides funds for promising young women law students. The second judge in DuPage County was Peg Kaufman. She graduated #1 in her class at St. John's Law School in New York and was an assistant state's attorney in DuPage, active in zoning work prior to becoming a judge. She was appointed in 1985 and retired in 1992 and died in 2013. The third woman judge was Mary Ellen Provenzali. She was born in 1938 and received her Juris Doctor degree from DePaul in 1977. And was in the state's attorney's office until she was appointed an associate in 1985. She represented the sheriff's office as an assistant state's attorney and married the sheriff, Richard Doria. She retired in 1996, and as far as I know, she's still in practice in Downers Grove. She was born in 1938, and this is 2026, so do the math. And I was the fourth woman judge in DuPage County. This is a picture of all of the women judges who were on the bench in the year 2006. And there were only 9, and now we have 17 women judges in DuPage County. They're not enough. Someone asked Ruth Bader Ginsburg when there would be enough women judges on the Supreme Court, and she said, when there are 9. I kind of feel the same way, but I'd be happy if we just got to be half that number. Of these women, these 9 women, there are 3 who have become chief judge. Catherine Cresswell in the upper right, Anne Jorgensen sitting at the lower right, and then me on the lower left-hand side. In addition to that, there are two who are now on the appellate court, Ann Jorgensen, who went to the appellate court after being the chief judge, and Linda Davenport, who's on the 3rd District Court of Appeals. And she's also been my best friend for the past 40 years. These are all of the circuit, or all of the judges that we have now. There are 17 women, and well, let's see, there are 48 judges total, so I guess that's 30 men and 17 women. No, 31 men. Math is not my strong suit. But we have a very good group of judges. I'm very proud of them. I've been the senior circuit judge, senior judge for a long time. I'm beginning to think that I can't be doing this forever, but I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. I love being the chief judge. It's different than anything I've ever done. I don't have a courtroom. I don't hear cases. I'm doing all administration, but I've been able to bring about a lot of changes, which I'd been thinking about for a long time. And I always thought, well, if I was queen of the world, this is the way I'd do it. And now I find myself in a position that I can institute a lot of the things that I wanted. That's pretty much what I had to tell you about women judges. There's one more thing that I want to show you. On the right is the seal, our new seal. We've had this for about, I think, 5 years. And it was an artist's rendering of the statue on the left. And this statue is very dear to me because my late husband bought it for me shortly before he died. It's about 5 feet tall, maybe 5.5. And it's a reproduction of a very famous sculptor by a man named Alois Meyer, who was an Austrian sculptor, and it was done in the 1900s. As I said, a local artist had done the new seal, but the chief judge back then, who was a man, thought there was too much thigh showing, and you can see that's encased in the red rectangle. So he had the artist add a little more drapery. I think sexism is alive and well in the 18th Judicial Circuit, but we're trying very, very hard to remedy that. We have 15 circuit judges and 33 associate judges, and I'm happy to say that 12 of the 15 circuit judges are women. We're very proud of that. I had a friend ask me what I wanted my legacy to be, and I said I want to help get more women on the bench, and with the help of a lot of people, including my sisters on the bench, we've been able to do that. That is what I have come to tell you about women lawyers and judges and their history. And do I have to stop sharing now to take questions? I think I will do that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We have a question. Could you mention one of the changes you spearheaded of which you're most proud? In my life before the law, I had a master's degree in social work, and people coming into the courthouse are usually having a really bad day, and a lot of times they act out, or they have something bad that goes on in court. And I thought that we ought to attend to mental health of the people who are coming into our building more than we do. And I know Deb Conroy, the chair of the county board, is also very focused on mental health, and the county board as well, as you can have been able to see probably from the Crisis Recovery Center that just opened up in September. I thought that we ought to have a mental health professional in the courthouse, at least on our busiest times. So we have partnered with the DuPage County Health Department, and we have Amy Coleman, who is a trained therapist, and she is in our building on our busiest times, which are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. So she's here 2.5 days a week. And I was just at a security committee meeting at noon today, and the deputies were saying what a wonderful help she is, and how much time she saved them. Just to give you an example, before Amy came, the protocol for the deputies, if someone was threatening suicide, they would call an ambulance and the person would be taken to Central DuPage Hospital. Yeah, I'll answer Janice's question in a minute. But Amy has been able to come down to a courtroom where someone is acting out, and has been able to calm them down. On a couple of occasions, she's escorted people over to the Crisis Recovery Center, and even doing things like, there was a woman who was taken into custody, and her 2 children were down in our children's waiting room. And they had arranged for a family member to come and pick up the kids, but they didn't have car seats for the kids. So Amy worked her contacts and was able to just find a couple of car seats. So she's very good at doing all kinds of things like that. And I know Janice had put up a question about a mental health court. Yes, we do have a mental health court, but that's for people who have are facing criminal charges that have arisen in part because of their mental illness. And that has a very good success rate, as opposed to people who do not go through a program like that. And it's good. They have graduations every couple of months, and there's never a dry eye in the house. At the graduations, people who go through the mental health program are, and they also have a drug court as well. The family members come. There's a veterans court too, and the veterans are always supported by the VA and other veterans groups. But it's really a very moving thing to see. People's lives have been absolutely changed by their participation in mental health court, veterans court, drug court. It's not only good for them, it's good for their families. They become tax-paying citizens, and their lives are completely changed by the experience. So it's really wonderful to see that transformation taking place.
Janice has another question. Where is the oversight for balance or fairness in rulings where a judge's lived experience includes inherent racial or gender biases that may work against the defendant?
That's grounds for appeal, and the oversight is the appellate court. So I get emails every day from people who are dissatisfied with a ruling that they have received for any number of reasons. And my answer that I have to give them is my authority as a chief judge does not extend to intervening in pending cases. So if someone is dissatisfied with the ruling, they can appeal it to the appellate court if they believe that the judge is somehow transgress the rules of professional conduct. For judges, their oversight is the Judicial Inquiry Board. They can make complaints to the JIB, and the complaints are always very carefully considered. I'm reading her.
Is there also the 10-year renewal question on the ballot?
Right, yeah. Yes, circuit judges are elected for a 6-year term, and after that they run for retention and for another 6-year term. The 10-year term is for Supreme Court justices and appellate court justices. I'm not even sure if we have any appellate court justices in the 3rd district that are running for retention. I don't believe so. But I may be wrong. I think most of the judges on the 3rd District Appellate Court have been there for less than 10 years. I think that there's one who's been there longer, I know, but I don't know if he's up for retention.
Faye
Yes.
is from Rockford.
Right.
And she has a best friend, Catherine Zenoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's on the appellate court.
Right. The state was redistricted about four years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and Catherine was in the 2nd appellate district, and I think she's still in the 2nd, but we're not in DuPage isn't in the 2nd anymore. We were redistricted into the 3rd district, so if you live in DuPage County, you can't vote for her.
Well, we advertise this statewide, so we have a wide view. So I guess that is the end of the questions, unless someone has a quick one. But we thank you so much for all of your research and sharing your experience and working toward increasing the number of women in the court system. Thank you, Judge Bonnie.
It's a wonderful job, and I've been a judge for almost 38 years, and I could have retired 18 years ago. So.
Well, we're glad you're there.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for attending, and spread the word. We will post the recording if someone registered and they weren't able to join us tonight. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.